In the heart of New York City, where millions of people passed by each other every single day, there lived a man that almost no one noticed. His name was Daniel Carter. To most people, he was just another homeless man sitting quietly near the subway entrance on Fifth Avenue. Every morning, Daniel would wake up before the sun rose, fold the thin blanket he slept with, and sit beside the cold concrete wall with a small cardboard sign that read, "Just trying to survive. God bless you." Thousands of people walked past him every day. Some looked away, some pretended they didn't see him, and a few dropped a dollar or some spare change into the small metal cup sitting beside him. But no one really knew his story. No one knew that Daniel Carter once had a completely different life. 10 years earlier, Daniel had a small apartment in Brooklyn. He had a stable job working as a construction supervisor and a loving wife named Emily. Their life was simple but happy. Every Sunday, they would walk together through Central Park, sharing coffee and talking about the future. They had dreams, big dreams. They wanted to start a family. They wanted to buy a small house outside the city. And Daniel always believed that if he worked hard enough, everything would fall into place. But life doesn't always follow the plans we make. One cold winter evening changed everything. Daniel was driving home from work when he received a phone call that would destroy his entire world. There had been a terrible accident. Emily had been involved in a car crash. By the time Daniel reached the hospital, it was already too late. Emily was gone. In that moment, Daniel felt like the ground beneath him had completely disappeared. For months after her death, Daniel tried to continue living his normal life. He went to work, he paid the bills, he tried to act strong, but inside he felt completely broken. Grief slowly consumed him. The man who once woke up every morning full of energy and hope slowly turned into someone who barely recognized himself. He began missing work. Then more days passed. Eventually, he lost his job. Without income, Daniel couldn't afford rent anymore. His savings disappeared quickly. Friends slowly drifted away. And before he truly realized what was happening, Daniel Carter became one of the thousands of homeless people living on the streets of New York. Years passed, and every year felt colder than the last. Daniel stopped hoping that life would ever change, until one ordinary afternoon when something unexpected happened. It was a rainy Tuesday in early October. Most people hurried past Daniel without looking, holding umbrellas and rushing to get somewhere warm. Daniel sat quietly under the subway stairs, trying to stay dry. His cardboard sign was wet, his jacket was thin, and his hands were shaking from the cold. That was when a young woman stopped walking. She didn't just drop money and leave. She stopped. She looked directly at Daniel, and for the first time in a very long time, someone actually spoke to him. "Hi," she said softly. Daniel looked up, surprised. People almost never spoke to him. "My name's Sarah," she said. Daniel hesitated for a moment before replying. "Daniel." There was an awkward silence. Then Sarah asked something that no one had asked him in years. "Have you eaten today?" Daniel didn't answer right away. He wasn't used to kindness anymore. But eventually he quietly said, "Not yet." Sarah smiled gently. "Come with me," she said. Daniel was confused. "Where?" "There's a small diner down the street. Let me buy you lunch." For a moment, Daniel didn't move. He wondered if she was joking, or if she would change her mind like so many others had before. But Sarah simply waited. Finally, Daniel slowly stood up, and together they walked toward the small diner around the corner. Inside the warm restaurant, Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in years: normal. Sarah ordered 2 hot meals and sat across from him. They talked. At first, Daniel was quiet, but Sarah kept asking questions, not in a pitying way, just like 2 normal people having a conversation. She asked about his life, his past, his dreams, and little by little, Daniel began telling his story about Emily, about the accident,
about losing everything. Sarah listened carefully. When Daniel finished speaking, she was silent for a moment. Then she said something that Daniel would never forget. "You know, sometimes life breaks us in ways we never expect, but that doesn't mean our story is over." Daniel looked at her, unsure what to say. For years, he believed his story had already ended. But maybe, just maybe, Sarah was right, and that simple lunch would become the moment that slowly began to change Daniel Carter's life forever. But neither of them knew yet that the next few weeks would bring something even more unbelievable.